G'day to all my friends and family, and welcome to Jim's 5am Club. Today I'm coming to you from a bushwalk close to my home, and I'm on the bushwalk called the Settlers Walk, which goes parallel to the Toongabbie Creek, which I'm just crossing now. As you can see, it's a creek which is running quite freely. There's a bit of garbage down there, but it's not the most beautiful creek in the world, but it is nature and it is suburban Sydney. So what I'm going to do today is I want to go for a bit of a walk and talk with you and go through a book summary today, and the book that I've chosen to talk about is entitled Predictable Success by an author named Les McKeown. Predictable Success, and it's a book which talks about corporate culture, organisational culture, and how to get the best out of an organisation. And I guess the first key point to come out of this book is where the author says that the most powerful characteristic of a predictable success organisation is the existence of a culture of self-accountability. Now that is profound and that is powerful. I've had the good fortune to have worked for many awesome corporations throughout my life. I've worked for American organisations, Australian organisations, and at the end of the day, the thing that sets apart the organisation is the culture. The culture of success, working in teams which are high performance, and what we've learnt along the way is what this author is telling us as well, is that the best teams, the best organisations are the ones that empower their employees through training, through clear leadership, but also allow them to get on with their job and make them both responsible and accountable for their area of skill and expertise, without people getting in the way and telling them what to do and micromanaging them. I remember years ago working for a IT organisation called Advantra, which was a subsidiary, a joint venture between Lendlease, IBM and Telstra. And it was back in the years just prior to the .com boom, where these organisations put together their outsourcing teams, their network teams, in order to build an organisation which they were hoping to float and to make a lot of money out of. But the .com collapse came to the share market, and each of the organisation ended up taking back their teams back into their organisations, and not being able to reap the rewards of their ideas. But in that organisation, I had a manager, the chief financial officer, whose name was Frank Coogan's. And I remember him in a meeting one day saying something which was really, really powerful. I'd worked with Frank Coogan's at IBM. He was the chief financial officer of the IBM finance company. And I'd had work activities with him at IBM as well. But at Advantra, he told his whole team, he says, I want each and every one of you, he said, to be a clone of me. And whatever happens throughout your workday, whatever decisions you need to make, you need to ask yourself, what would Frank do? And make a decision, make a good, strong decision that you can back up, and I will back you up, he said. So at the end of the day, I don't want you guys to be out there seeing things happening and not doing anything about it. I don't want to be your policeman. I don't want you to be coming to me all the time. But I want you to take responsibility and full accountability and be mini chief financial officers. And as I said, if you need my backing, you will have my backing 100%. And I remember back then how liberating that was to have a senior executive see us as being worthy of making decisions and of being clones of the CFO. It was just a wonderful, wonderful time of my career. So we'll just keep on moving here in terms of this book here as well. So the other things that the author here talks about is that it's important to keep a business bubbling along, according to the author. So bubbling along. Because if you don't keep your business bubbling along, as the author says, what happens is that a business can very, very quickly, very, very easily disappear overnight. And it happens all the time. You know, what's making the news at the moment is in China, there's a large property group that is having some significant financial problems and look like they're going to fold and cause economic catastrophe. But it just goes to show that, things look good one day, things are going well, and then the next day it all just falls apart and it's an absolute disaster. So the author here says that we need to be on top of our game all the time because disaster can happen very, very quickly. And when I look at Toongabbie Creek here, I can see here that the water level up here is very, very low and the water is just trickling through. But if you look at the trees, there are bags. There is plastic caught up in the trees, even up in the high branches, which just shows and proves that when there's a storm, when a storm comes through here, the water activity is really vicious and really high. So once again, reminding us that we need to be on top of our game because things can change very, very quickly. And that's why Frank Coogan said for each and every person to be his eyes and ears, because by the time news travels to him, he wants to make sure that we're on top of it and we're nipping the problems in the bud, as opposed to him having to deal with it, which is embarrassing for him and not good for his reputation. And if he doesn't look good, then we certainly don't look good either as his team. So in terms of businesses, the author here says there's 3 stages that have to come before predictable success is ensured. There's a thing called the early struggle. There's fun, where business becomes fun and everything seems to be going well in those early growth stages. And then we come to a stage which is called the Whitewater Stage. So each of these stages he describes. The early struggle stage is where we've got enough customers, we've got enough cash to pay our bills, and there's always a struggle to make sure that we get the balance right. You know, having enough customers, having enough cash to get through the next month, to pay your rent, to pay your employees. So there's an early struggle in those early times. But it's important to get through that early struggle and to have the cash flow so you can survive. Because unless you survive, you won't be able to thrive, is the bottom line. So according to the author here, his rule of thumb is that you need to have 3 times as much cash as you actually need. That's an important rule. So if you need $10,000 a month or $10 million a month for your business, then you need to have at least 3 times that amount in the bank account to make sure that you don't struggle and you don't panic, because there are ups and downs. The fun stage is when money starts coming in and you don't have to do much because things are humming along and you're in that very early growth stage, that sexy stage where things are happening and everybody's excited and everybody can see that the future looks bright and interesting. And then we get to a thing called the Whitewater Stage, where all of a sudden we get to a point where our demand exceeds our ability to meet it, and we start to get sloppy. So we're in a growth stage where we're ramping up pretty quickly, and as we said, you're bringing on new staff, you haven't quite trained them enough, you're expanding at a exponential rate, and the business processes aren't quite in place to do what you need to do, and you get a little bit sloppy with the way you get things done. So they're the key points. So you need to get through those 3 phases, according to the author, before things can get better and a lot better. The next formal point to come out of this book is to never stop simplifying how you make decisions in your company. So you've got to keep on simplifying how you make decisions. Because as we have learnt time and time again, when you're working in business, we make decisions and we set up processes, but before you know it, a year has passed, and that decision that you were making and that process, that all those things that you used to do, that used to make sense, all of a sudden are no longer relevant, are redundant. So you need to keep on reviewing what you're doing and how you're doing it to make sure that it's still relevant. And you need to keep your decision-making process as simple as possible, according to the author. And the way to get through that Whitewater stage that we talked about, where demand exceeds our ability to supply our products and services, is to make decisions simpler. And it's an important key, be able to make decisions. I remember at IBM where the senior executives would always say, it doesn't matter about making the right decision, the key is to be able to make decisions, and to be able to push the decision making down the line to as many people and make them as responsible and as accountable as possible, without having them all having to rely on you. So that's an important point. So decision making and the ability to make easy decisions is really, really important. So as people, as the author says here, as people in a team, you need to understand what they're looking for in a leader. What the author here is saying here is that what people need to do is that when you've got new people coming into your team, you need to make sure that they're the right people. You need to make sure that you're in a position to hire the right people. And the best way to do that is when you're about to hire somebody new into the team, to get him to come or get her to come into the team and work with the other team members so that you can get a sense of the chemistry and whether or not there's a fit, a team fit that works for your particular organisation. And he makes a very important point here. It's important to be able to delegate, but not to try and control. I might head back. It's important to be able to delegate decision making, but not to be too focused on controlling your organisation, your team, because what happens is, and we learn this as parents, if you spend too much time trying to control the people around you, trying to control the decisions, the decision making in the teams that you make, that sooner or later what will happen is that you will end up with the responsibility and the accountability for those decisions that you try to control. So getting on to the third and final point in this book summary from this author. The author here talks about installing a couple of systems, a couple of management systems to keep your success predictable. The first one needs that we need to have an environment of trust where people are freely able to debate good ideas, to put ideas on the table, to thrash things out, to identify weaknesses in the product, in the service, in the organisation, but to do it in a way where once a decision is made, that everybody sticks to the decision and nobody gets sour about it and tries to undermine through politics and slow playing of the ball, as people sort of suggest. And what the author here is saying here is that debate, decide, defer decision making. So we need to decide, we need to debate things. We need a time to debate things. So you need some of your members, some of the people, to be the devil's advocate and to really attack all ideas and all decisions. And then once things are debated and thrashed out and the options are put on the table, then the business needs to decide what it wants to do, and to have the guts to defer this decision making if it's not the right time to make a decision. You know, so not making a decision is a decision in itself, so to speak. So I've worked for a lot of organisations where a director will put forward an idea or a decision, and rather than people trying to implement what has been decided by the senior management team, what happens is there are politics at play, and people spend a lot of time, waste a lot of time debating things that have already been decided. Once something's been decided, people need to pull their heads in and just follow and do whatever they need to do. And if they've got an issue, don't fight about it. Don't be slow at playing the ball. Don't be a troublemaker, so to speak. Raise it to the right people. If it's a genuine issue, raise it. Have it debated and discussed. But once something is decided, you need to close ranks and basically do what you have to do. And that's what great organisations do. The other thing that the author here talks about is that we mustn't waste too much time over analysing things. There are people who spend too much time wanting to have 100%, 90% of the picture, having all of the pieces of the puzzle there. The author here says that you only need 40% or less of the pieces of the information in order to make a good decision. If you're wanting to have perfection, if you're wanting to have perfect clarity in a unclear, unperfect world, then you're basically wasting your time and you're wasting the opportunities around you. Use your intuition, and as the author says, the 80-20 rule, you only basically need a little bit of information, a little bit of data to be able to give you the vision of what needs to be done, and just go for it. Because as we said, if you're waiting for perfection, for all the information, all the data, what it'll do is it'll just create too many options. It'll create too many questions. It'll create too much pain, and you'll probably end up not making a decision at all. You'll end up procrastinating, and your business, your teams will spend too much time trying to fight each other and prove each other wrong. So the other thing the author here says is that people need time. All workers need time, especially in the corporate world. They need time off to recuperate, regenerate, recreate, and a time where they can spend being creative. So what the author here says is that one workday a week, people are allowed in Salesforce.com. This is what the book says, this is what the author says, this is what his dream and vision is, to just work on what they want, what they like. Because working on what you like sometimes can generate and morph itself into a product that could make billions of dollars for the organisation. So giving people the freedom to work on the things that they like working on and engaging with people in the organisation that they like working with is a strategy and a tactic that could be very, very useful. I love these little walkways across the creeks. They're just so beautiful, so pretty. Anyway, that's about it. So the last point is, that the author says, is take risks. At the end of the day, a big business is allowed to take risks. And those risks, may pay off. If they don't pay off, then they're not going to damage the business significantly. So have a crack is what the author here is telling us. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining me on this episode of Jim's 5am Club, where we went through this book called Predictable Success by Les McKeown, and we learnt quite a bit about what makes him tick and what makes his organisation tick, and hopefully we can incorporate some of those learnings, some of those ideas into our lives, into our businesses, and into our families. So take care, we'll chat again. I'll come to you from a different location with a different message, a message of empowerment, where we can walk and talk. You can be part of my little bushwalk and vicariously enjoy what I'm experiencing, and hopefully we can become partners in each other's growth and development, where we become bigger, better, stronger and more capable. Anyway, we'll chat again. Signing off from Jim's 5am Club. Bye for now.